Alright, my Tbr7's all torn apart, and I'm going to make a quick video here to cover some of the little details, some of the things you do want to be careful about when you're taking this apart. So, something before I forget here. Here's your 3 dowels. You can see the one has a little rubber O-ring seal on it. So, if this was back in order, you'd have your lower gasket, your cylinder would be here, and up above that, these are sitting in the order they came off. You would have a dowel here below your cylinder head, a dowel here, and this one right here, that's the one that you got to be careful whenever you pull the head off the bike, because there's a little rubber oil seal. I'm gonna take a guess you could probably just put a rubber O-ring in place of it. I don't think this is like a super special little seal, but it has to be there. So, moving along. By the way, when you're doing this, you do want to put the bike at top dead center prior to taking it apart. Not necessarily because you're messing with the timing. Your timing is all enclosed over here. There's your cam gear. Flywheel is obviously right in here. The motor is in time, but the reason you want it in time before you take it apart is because whenever you take it apart, you're in there doing whatever you're doing. In this case, I'm putting on a ported head by Henner Racing. Whenever you go to reassemble it, you set your push rods down on the cam followers. You go to put your valve train assembly in with your rocker arms. You don't want to be applying pressure to the push rods while you're putting the bolts in. It's just the way it is. That's the way I do it. That's the way I've always done it. I don't recommend doing it any other way. It takes 2 whole minutes to put the motor in time. From a teardown point of view, obviously the tank has to come off. So if your tank's coming off, your side panels have to come off, then the seat, then the tank, then you have your upper motor mount. That would be right here. In this case, it's sitting right here. It was a 10 and a 12 for the lower bolt that passes through the head itself. And then these were a 14 millimeter on one side and a 13 millimeter on the other. Most of everything else is 8s, 10 or 12 millimeter. You could reuse your head gasket. I don't recommend it. Could reuse the extremely janky paper cardstock. I don't know. Lower cylinder gasket. I wouldn't put this back on my bike. I'm kind of ashamed that they ship these bikes with the gasket like this. Yeah, so don't recommend it. Every one of these motors I ever put back together, we order the gaskets from CSC and use the TT250's gaskets. They're better. They're a multi-layer steel gasket. At the same time, you'll end up with a little more compression because they squish a little more whenever you put everything together. So you're also getting a free bump and compression out of the deal. While you're in here, you do want to check to make sure your rings are all right. And whenever you put them back together, you want to make sure that your rings are spun in a manner that the openings are not aligned, therefore you don't have blow by. So it's something worth checking. But you want to make sure that you don't have any scoring going on here. And you want to check your cylinder. Now, I've already checked mine, the cross hatching, and it is great. There's no scoring in the actual cylinder walls. So we can move right along. Now, here's the new head. It's got new springs, valves, retainers. Everything's already put together. It's all done. And best thing to do, well, for me, I was tearing it apart at about 1 a.m., 1:30. So I just, for example, set the bolts where they're supposed to go. Now, all three of these bolts are the same. When they were installed at the factory, did they develop a little bit of memory for the threads that they were threaded into? I don't know, and I wouldn't like to find out the hard way. So I recommend that you put everything back exactly the way you took it apart. Side note real fast too, something that could potentially screw you up. When you are pulling the head off the bike, this is your external head bolt. There is one external head bolt. As you can see, there is a copper crush washer on it. Please do not lose that. Could you run down to a Honda dealer and get one? Maybe. Do you want to find out if you can get one? No. Do not want to lose that. Just put it back on the bolt. That way you know where it is. None of this is extremely hard. It's just, if you've never done this, take it slow. Do it at your own pace. Put things where you can remember them. Everything will be fine. These are not complicated motors to work on by any means, but tearing apart an engine is tearing apart an engine. So there's always going to be something that is a little tedious. So just take your time taking it apart. Take your time putting it back together. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the torque specs. I'm going to put them in the video's description in case you need them. That way you have a reference for assembly. Now, I'll end up making another video about this for reassembly. I just wanted to cover some of the smaller details for taking apart the top end on, well, essentially it's a Honda CG250, but your Tbr7, your Hawk 250 carbureted, your Hawk 250 DLX fuel injected, your Life in Expect, your Bashin, any other variant, your TT250, whatever China bike that you have running a CG clone motor. It's all going to come down to the same stuff. It's all the same procedure. I don't think I'm leaving anything out in this. There wasn't any real special tricks to anything. It was all straightforward. You have your four, sake of argument, they're head stud nuts. They too on all four of them. There's a washer. They do have to be there, so please do not lose them. Don't throw them into a bin, a bowl, a Tupperware container and mix everything up. Just lay your hardware out like this. If you're not familiar, the easiest thing to do is to take a piece of cardboard, draw a rough sketch of what exactly you're taking apart, throw a label across it with a marker, and punch some holes in it with a screwdriver so you can make a template for where all the bolts go. That's the easiest thing to do. So moving right along here, I'm going to finish putting this stuff where I need it to go, and the last little bit of disassembly I have to do to finish up what I'm doing, and then I'll make one to reverse the process for assembly. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And as usual, I hope this helps somebody out here who wants to, do a ported head, change their cam. Maybe they had a leaky head gasket, change the cam followers, whatever the case is that you're tearing apart your motor. This should definitely help you out. So thanks for watching. Have a good day.